It's a big story for me. It's a big story for this channel. The rot that runs in our jails. The nexus of corruption and collusion between jail authorities, jail officials, and the criminals who spend their time. And just like in any other place, it's often the rich who get the most benefit. Even when behind bars, it's the rich who get to live the easy life, get to go about their businesses. Even from behind the bars, it's the powerful gangsters, the big corporate giants, the ministers who can pretty much call the shots for anything they want from behind the bars. A stark example of this is the case of the Unitech promoters, the big real estate / telecom giant of once upon a time, and their founder promoters, the Chandra brothers, who've been in jail for very long. In the light of that case and a Supreme Court order, perhaps we've seen the biggest action take place against the jail authorities. Let me first tell you about this case itself. A case where the Chandra brothers of Unitech were accused of cheating several home buyers in the NCR region, and they landed up in jail. The jail officials were accused of colluding with them. They were allegedly given a free run inside, guess where? Tihar Jail. The allegation was that the Chandra brothers carried out illegal activities from inside the jail, flouted every single rule which was there in the jail manual, obviously in connivance with the jail officials. And so action has been taken. Only though, after the intervention of the Supreme Court. It is the Supreme Court, yet again, that ordered a full-fledged criminal probe into these collusion charges. And so the Enforcement Directorate that was probing the case during investigation found out how the accused, being inside the jail, ran pretty much an office from there. Obviously not possible if you don't have help. So the jail officials have now been accused of engaging in illegal activities, flouting the jail manuals. In fact, the Chandra brothers have been accused of making transfer of assets while inside the jail, dissipating the proceeds of crime, influencing witnesses while inside the jail, attempting to derail the probe while inside the jail. So once the Enforcement Directorate did this investigation and submitted this report, the Supreme Court ordered a probe against the jail officials. 4 DSPs, 3 SPs and other staff were suspended, and a full-fledged probe ordered against these officials. They have been booked under Prevention of Corruption Act, several other IPC sections, for colluding with the accused and allowing them to essentially do what they want. The Supreme Court, viewers, had to step in and spell out what pretty much everybody in this country has known for now years, what pretty much has become an accepted reality. It's the Supreme Court that said Tihar Jail acted in connivance with the ex-Unitech heads. It's absolutely shameless on part of the Tihar SP. They even said at one point, shift the Unitech founders to Arthur and Taloja Jail. Serious issues have been raised by the ED in its reports. Tonight, I want to talk about this finding. Tonight, I want to talk about the fact that finally, 32 officials have been suspended and booked. 32 officials suspended and booked for helping those behind bars. And it's another instance that shows you, just like Subrata Roy, just like Amar Singh, just like any other former minister who was lodged in the Tihar Jail, the rich and the mighty continue to get away with the biggest of the privileges even inside jail. Can the latest action pave way for a larger cleanup, or are we being too optimistic, too idealistic? I say good evening to Amod Kant, retired IPS officer, joining me this evening. Miran Borvankar, former Additional Director General for Maharashtra Prisons, Ananya Bhardwaj, Senior Assistant Editor with The Print, Mr. Deshrathan Nigam, lawyer with the Supreme Court, joining me right now. In fact, let me first start off with Mr. Amod Kant. Mr. Kant, of course, I think at one point, Tihar Jail became synonymous with all the VVIPs who would land up there and all the stories that emerged of the kind of privileges that they had, the kind of access that they caught, luxury that they enjoyed. Would this be perhaps the first time we are seeing a large-scale action take place? 32 officials booked.
I think perhaps you are too young. That's why you have forgotten the most important case, which I had the opportunity to investigate in 1987, Charles Sobraj case.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
The Charles Sobraj escape case, which as Deputy Commissioner of Police Crime in Delhi, I investigated in 1987. I think no other criminal case, no other jail escape case was as sensational as that was. And if you compare the Charles Sobraj case, because I have just stopped writing about that case in my second volume of memoirs, and so I'm fresh with that case. The point I'm trying to make that one doesn't know what exactly happened, because see, one knows that a lot of these rules were violated. Perhaps, the prison system has plenty of laws and bylaws and rules according to which the prison officials have to act, according to which the culprits have to follow. So one doesn't know what exactly happened. But then that particular case and several other cases which you have referred to in Tihar Jail and across the country in many jails, people have taken liberty with that. Now, this particular case, of course, because it's a very unique kind of situation. The Chandra brothers are in jail, I think, for the past nearly 4 years now. 2017, I think they went to jail. And during this period, a lot of activities have been going on. Because for a good period of time, I presume, I'm making a statement which is very neutral, because whatever I have read in the newspapers, I have followed this case. They had been given some opportunities to recover part of the property or part of the wealth. This probably they have swindled. They are alleged to have swindled on account of kind of cheating about 29,000 house owners who could not get their properties, and this Unitech case turned out to be such a big case. So one has no idea how much concession was given to them officially and how much those concessions were compromised by the jail officials. But the fact remains that the Commissioner of Police Delhi, the present Commissioner of Police Delhi, was directed by the Honorable Supreme Court of India to conduct investigation. And he is a veteran CBI officer, ex-CBI officer like I was. So obviously he must have gone into it. And subsequently, I am told that besides conducting his own inquiry with the help of Delhi police officers, he went to Bombay also. And there he examined these two gentlemen, Chandra brothers, and then came to a conclusion. And that conclusion was submitted to Supreme Court of India, and Supreme Court found, and obviously, I think apparently the Commissioner of Police Delhi also found a lot of things going wrong in the jail on account of Chandra brothers, and the case is registered. So FIR is there. Investigation, whether it has completed or not, that's a separate issue. Because I think my colleague Meera will tell you that FIR is not the end of the case. A lot of investigation has to go into it. So let's wait what happens, what ultimately comes out of it. But yes, it's very, very sensational. And coming from Tihar Jail, particularly, it appears to be a highly objectionable, maybe very serious affair. Because Tihar Jail is an extremely secure place. It is supposed to be India's largest jail and perhaps the most protected jail. And there are very senior officers sitting here. And I presume that considering the past experience, this jail security, the jail systems must have improved a lot. If it hasn't improved and these things are happening, I think one has to...
Well, let me actually, at this point, get Ananya onto the conversation. Because Ananya, outside of the Chandra brothers case, which obviously came in under Supreme Court's radar a while ago, and hence this investigation and now proper official action, there have been numerous instances where big corporates to gangsters, they're all nicely sitting behind bars and calling the shots and running their empires.
Absolutely, Tanvi. So this is not the first time that we are hearing that phones were being used inside Tihar Jail, or some things were coming from outside. goodies were being exchanged with the prisoners, extortion calls being made from inside the prison. In fact, this year itself, in October, there's a case of murder that has been registered against officials of the Tihar Jail in the murder in connection with the murder of a gangster. And in 2019, in fact, I was just going through some data. There were about 60 phones that were recovered from inside the Tihar Jail. There have been instances of drugs being thrown inside the Tihar Jail, and all this cannot happen without the connivance of the jail officials. Like in this case, they have, in fact, been able to identify these 35 officials, and that's why it's a big development.
So, Ananya, I'll just, sorry, I apologize for interrupting, but just hold on to that thought. I also have Kiran Bedi on the phone line with me. I just want to also hear from her, about the extent of collusion that takes place in jails and how, while it's not a new problem, it still continues perhaps with the same intensity. Good evening, Ms. Kiran Bedi. Thank you for speaking with us. I speak to you at a time where 32 jail officials have been booked for colluding with a bunch of corporate criminals. But there is a larger story where I needed your insight. Do you believe that this fight to clean up this corruption within jails is still a far long way from being over? And if so, why is that?
Well, apparently, at such a scale, so much of maladministration happening means there's a collapse of internal administration, nothing else. Because such a thing happening at such a big scale means there's something seriously wrong with the systems, seriously wrong with internal administration, certainly wrong with supervision and whatever that goes with it. I think it calls for an overhaul. Such a thing cannot happen without a collapse of all systems possible.
You say, it cannot happen without the collapse of all systems possible. So should the action then just be limited to these 32 officials who face criminal prosecution, or should there be an overarching change? Because let's face it, Ms. Bedi, even over the last decade, there have been numerous instances of corporates and gangsters running the show from behind the bars in Tihar Jail.
I think it calls for a little more intensive judicial inquiry. What's collapsed? Because Tihar knows what to do. Tihar knows what is right. Tihar systems, which gave Tihar a great name. At one stage, Tihar was known as an ashram, which had meditation programs, education programs, PNC programs, NGOs. What's gone wrong? And over the years, why has it been a collapse of administration? When did it begin? Who's responsible? I think it requires for a proper judicial inquiry into what's gone wrong, because they know the system. They were in place. The manual is in place. What's gone wrong? Why has there been a violation of the Prison Act of Delhi, which was made by the National Human Rights Commission and everybody getting together, putting their minds together? I think it's a collapse of internal administration. Such a decay cannot happen suddenly. When did the decay begin? When did the decay begin? What's gone wrong? And what kind of people are we posting there? It's very important. What kind of integrity checks are we making? What is the kind of manpower deployment which they're having? What kind of internal audit? I think all these things we need to compare, because Tihar had become at one stage a model for the rest of the country and the world. And remember, for the world. So if there's a decay, when did it begin? Who's responsible? And why hasn't the internal administration not intervened to stop decay? I think that's a serious question to be asked and acted upon. I think just making arrests and registered, but will not solve the problem. You need an overall.
Right.
Overall, I think a team of people should be formed, where under the court jurisdiction, a team of officials can be formed, people who worked hard. There are a lot of former people. They can be, committee can be formed under the judicial supervision. Let them visit Tihar and see where did the decay begin, what's happening. There are any number of good practices on record which Tihar was practicing. I think we need to audit what's gone wrong with those practices.
Yes. Ms. Bedi, you emphasize here on a judicial probe. Do you believe that the rot, which would obviously run so wide and deep, is not something that a political establishment will be capable of fixing?
But I think, look, political administration is responsible for the supervision, by the way.
Yeah.
It comes under the state administration. Prisons is a state subject. Therefore, it is coming under the state administration, whatever the state of the political establishment is. So, while apportioning, I don't want to apportion blame. Obviously, it's a political collapse, collapse of the political establishment equally, because it's a state subject. But what is important here is, when it is not the same political establishment which will give you the answer. I think the Honorable Court, the Honorable Supreme Court, Honorable High Court, whoever is, they can form a committee. Go back to say, when did the collapse begin? Because Tihar was a model. My Nexus award is based on what was done in Tihar. So why do you undo it? Something which has worked over the years, why has that collapsed?
Yeah, but I hope, you know, Kiran Bedi, when you ask these questions, when you speak of this issue and you demand, you know, some scrutiny here, I hope that people who have the decision-making power also listen. Thank you so much for giving us your time and speaking to me on this very crucial issue. I want to also bring in Miran Borvankar, who also has significant experience when it comes to handling prisons. So, Ms. Borvankar, to the point that even Kiran Bedi was making, it has to be seen as a systemic collapse where an entire overhaul is needed. I mean, for me, 32 officials by itself is a big number, but do you think that there needs to be a larger response to this?
Yeah, so Tanvi, I have 4-5 points. One is, your audience must be clear that prison is not police. Mrs. Bedi, Amod Khan sir and I, we may belong to police department, we belong to Indian Police Service, but prison department is totally different from police. Their recruitment, their training is different. This our audience must know. Second, registering an FIR is just the start. Today, I gave my evidence in a case of organized crime syndicate headed by Dawood Ibrahim, in a case which was registered in 2004. After 17 years today, I gave my evidence on Zoom. You are registering an FIR today. When will it come for hearing? When will these delinquent officers be punished? This is a big question mark. Third, I want to point out that there is a long pending recommendation of creating All India Service for Prisons and Correctional Administration. Why have we not started that particular service? That would have shown some results by now. And then we have to strengthen not only our internal vigilance, external vigilance, anti-corruption bureaus, but also bring various departments together when it comes to mounting vigilance within the prison, which is a very, very closed department. When I was in the prison department, it brings me no happiness. In fact, with great sadness, I would say my own prison superintendent of Arthur Road prison was caught with about 40 lakh cash. So handling prison is not easy. We have to bring this All India service. We have to strengthen our vigilance. And I was just thinking, it's such a closed department. Why be totally dependent only on the staff of prison and a few police officials? We should bring departments like women and child welfare, education, or teachers should come from on deputation, academicians, legal aid societies, customs, uniform officers from other services, so that this nexus between criminals and prison officials can be broken by having different departments on deputation in certain duties within prison. Maybe we will be able to break this nexus.
You know, you highlight some very important points, you know, about the challenges, because often the conversation becomes about why is it so difficult? Why is the change not happening? How has it become an accepted reality? And perhaps the answer lies on what Miran Borvankar you are highlighting here. But let me also bring in Deshratan Nigam on this conversation, Mr. Nigam. Case after case, like I said, you know, recently, a few days ago, we were discussing the case of after the gangster shootout that took place in the courts about how one of the key suspects is behind bars. A few days before that, we had instances of pictures emerging of these hardened criminals partying inside the jail and pretty much having access to every kind of intoxicant that they would want. Earlier, we've read books, read reports of the luxury that was rolled out for the big corporates. Now, there was a time when Supreme Court allowed Subrata Roy to hold video conferences simply so that he could sell his assets to return the money that was due to SEBI and the investors. But what that ended up being, Mr. Nigam, was an example of a 5-star luxurious room with all the amenities, air conditioned, modern Western toilets and whatnot that was provided to him. How do we fix this?
Only if we handle the problem somewhere from between, we will not be doing justice. We were showing a slide where it showing the paragraph. Now the prison department historically is always.
Mr. Nigam, I'm really sorry, but there seems to be a bit of a trouble with your audio line. It's extremely muffled. I'm going to ask my team to speak to you and try and fix that. Let me bring in... No, now we've lost your audio completely. So I don't think removing headphones is helping. We're going to fix that and come back to you, Mr. Nigam. Ananya, the example that I was giving, Subrata Roy is one of those. So many of such examples from the same jail. So like you were earlier saying, and when I interrupted you, not something new, but perhaps the first time somebody's taken notice of it in the courtroom.
Right, absolutely. Because here we are not talking about some gangsters who are making extortion calls. We are really talking about 2 accused who are involved in a allegedly involved in a multi-crore scam. Here, the proceeds of crime are worth 7,000 crore. And as ED rightly pointed out in the court, that if these guys are selling, operating an underground office from South Delhi and selling off their proceeds of crime, then it's going to meddle with the case, which is a very, very important point because the investigation is still ongoing. The home buyers are the victims here that we are talking about. And as I pointed out, that the proceeds of crime are more than 7,000 crore, and which is why this becomes a very important case and becomes a very good precedent, since now 35 jail officials have finally been booked under the corruption law, Prevention of Corruption Act, and the case is being investigated by the crime branch. So it is a very good precedent. In fact, more of these are required, since we every now and then, since I have covered Tihar very closely, so every now and then we see how money is being circulated inside the jail, how mobile phones are being being used from inside the prison. In fact, beginning last year, there were mobile phones that were recovered from high security prisons where alleged terrorists are arrested and kept. So these, and even convicts are kept, in fact. You must have also known about this case from where Tihar Jail, from inside Tihar Jail, a message related to the Israel bomb blast was sent out using a phone. So this is not the first time that we are seeing. And another point that I want to make here, people were talking about how jail officials are involved and how they take money, and how ma'am was pointing out that one jail official was found with 40 lakh cash. It's a very, very regular thing which everybody knows. A jail official, someone was telling me, takes about 10 to 15,000 to arrange and smuggle inside a phone. A small phone that is often used by gangsters to make these extortion calls from inside the jail. As I was pointing out earlier, also drugs are easily available. So we are not just talking about rich people who are inside the jail, but even normal gangsters, people who are convicts of robberies, can easily have easy access to these things, whether it's cash, whether it's drugs, whether it's phones. And this is what needs to be fixed. This overall system needs to be fixed. One important point I'll make here is that in Tihar Jail, there are about 18,000 prisoners, and to look upon them, there are just about 1,400 to 1,500 jail officials. They are also very much understaffed, and this is also one of the main reasons why all this is happening, which needs to be fixed and looked into.
Okay, understaffing also one of the reasons that needs to be looked into. But you know what you highlighted, Ananya, I want to take it to Mr. Nigam. Mr. Nigam, and we're not here just simply sitting and outraging about the fact, oh my God, they got access to cigarettes or even a mobile phone or even alcohol. But it becomes extremely problematic when they have access to facilities that allows them to either plot and carry out more crimes or to destroy evidence of the crime they are accused of, which is where it becomes even more dangerous, Mr. Nigam, and it can destroy the strongest of the cases against these rich people.
Tanvi, as I was not able to complete my earlier statement, let me make it absolutely clear that if we handle the problem from somewhere in between, we will not be able to reach any kind of solution. We know that historically, the prison department has always been with the Chief Minister of Delhi. Since if it is not prison department, if it is not allocated to any other ministry, then it is always with the Chief Minister. And presently, he is the head of it. So Delhi government has to take responsibility of whatever is going inside the prison. So accountability and responsibility has to be fixed right at the top, not somewhere in between. So you have to clearly establish that there is a chain of command which reaches right to the top. And to say that the Delhi government is not aware of it, it would be dereliction of duty. And therefore, it requires the complete overhaul of the system, not only at the end of the government, but at the middle level of management at the Tihar level. So these are very, very important issues, and many people on your panel have the esteemed co-panelists, including Ms. Kiran Bedi, has red flagged number of issues. And those issues include, as rightly pointed out, there are right now about 20,000 prisoners there, including about 68% of under trials. So one has to fix that situation, and the prisoner to official ratio has to increase. Otherwise, you will not be able to have a close supervision, control, or vigilance over them. And there will be leakages, as you have seen it. I'm clearly aware of the fact that, gangs who are inside the prison are running the show from inside and plotting various kinds of things. Because I was involved in a case where the criminal trial was transferred from UP to Delhi. And the prisoners that were brought in continue to indulge in those kind of activities. And one of the important issues is to release the under trials. Although prison authorities do not know of Section 436A of CRPC, where if the under trial has completed half of the highest or maximum sentence, they have to be released. They are unaware of this provision. Although the Law Commission has suggested that it should be 1/3 of that term, and the under trial should be released if they have completed 1/3 of the term of the maximum sentence that can be granted to for committing that particular crime. And this is for up to 7 years of imprisonment. So all these things, require a concerted effort. All India Judicial Services for Prisons is also a requirement, specialized training, and this is happening in a model jail. Please remember, Tihar Jail is known as a model jail for the entire country, for the kind of facilities it does, for the kind of reforms and rehabilitation it does for its prisoners. If it is happening here, you can imagine the state of prisons in the entire country. And the nexus between, the criminals and the jail officials, if there is a political patronage, which in my opinion is there, has to be unearthed. It cannot happen in vacuum. I'm very, very clear. It cannot happen in vacuum, and there has to be a patronage or hand at the highest level. So
Mr. Nigam, you make a very valid point, and I think, obviously there has been political patronage, top officials patronage for a really long time for this to continue, irrespective of how many governments have come and gone. But the point that you made, that it's the responsibility is of the current Delhi government to, they would have known, there is no way they don't know, and for them to fix it. Is the power to change the appointments of the officials also under the Delhi government? Because there seems to be a lot of back and forth, as is in many cases between Delhi and centre, over who controls what and whether they actually have the power over the officials who are posted there.
No. See, the administrative control of transfer and posting lies with the Delhi government, and Principal Secretary Home is the administrative secretary of the prison department. And therefore, they have the power to change, and presuming for the sake of argument that the administrative control is probably sub judice. But then who stopped the Delhi government from raising the flag? Right. Or writing it to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi? That is, I'm presuming that they don't have the powers. But the fact remains, everybody seems to be sleeping over the issue. this has become, this magnitude has become quite phenomenal. If 32 officials are being suspended, it is a matter of grave concern, and somebody from the Delhi government has to come out and take responsibility of the action and try to fix it.
Yes.
I mean,
I am aghast. I am with you on this.
Silence at the end of the Delhi government.
I am aghast at the lack of response. I mean, how normal has it become that even when 32 officials are booked, nobody even bats an eyelid out of, apart from a couple of us who would cover this story to say, oh my God, what's going on at Tihar Jail? Why should it not be one big talking point for any government authority right now to look into what is going on? Mr. Amod Kant wanted to make a point. Please go ahead.
No, I want to make a couple of points here. Mr. Nigam told about the overall character of Tihar Jail. It's a fact that Tihar Jail in many ways has been a model jail. I know the jail very well in the sense that not only I have gone there as a police officer, but I have gone there otherwise also. Recently, in fact, we're carrying out some programs with Tihar Jail. And things appear to be really good in many ways. And it's one of the best jails in the country. There's no doubt about it. Now, the issue is that on the one hand, the overall administration, the overall condition of Tihar Jail, which definitely the state government is supposed to look after. Tihar is totally independent of Delhi police. That point was made by Meera also and Nigam Saab also. Tihar, of course, is being looked after by Delhi government. The chief minister, I don't think, looks after any department because he doesn't carry any department on his head. But then other departments are there. So that is one part, that how do you correct the wrongs? How do you find out exactly what's happening overall in Tihar Jail? That is one point. But the second point is, which is very, very important here, that this particular case is unique. Let me qualify and clarify. Probably Mr. Nigam will find it better to understand the entire issue. These gentlemen about whom this entire case is built up, Chandra brothers, they are there on account of the order of the Supreme Court of India. Tihar Jail, in any case, has nearly 80% under trials. This is another point I am trying to make, that this is the highest number of under trials happen to be in Tihar Jail, which is a very, very wrong situation. It shouldn't happen. It's a very unhealthy situation that 80% prisoners happen to be under trials. These two brothers happen to be there, not exactly as under trials only, but because Supreme Court of India has put them there in order to get the best result out of it. Now, initially, I am told, I have been kind of following this particular case also in the media only partly, that initially some concessions were given to them, some kind of support was given to them so that they could recover as much money as possible. I think they failed. It couldn't happen. And a lot of other wrong things came out of their transactions, their activities. So this particular case now, at what stage it became a collision between these 32 officials, it became a criminal activity. It was far beyond just a violation of the jail manual. It has to be seen. Let us not hurry into things. Let's find out what happened. Regarding whether this case be investigated or judicial inquiry is carried out, like Kiran was talking about it. See, in my considered opinion, the investigation has to be carried out. If the Commissioner of Police Delhi, who is an ex-CBI man, he himself went to that place, he found out and he reported to Supreme Court of India, and now the crime branch is conducting investigation. Let this investigation proceed. I'm sure, I am very confident that Delhi police could be able to bring out the truth and nail, if it happens to be a criminal activity, a series of criminal activity, they would be nailed, I am sure. Regarding other activities, let us keep it apart and try to find out what's going wrong in the jail. It's a fact that many of these gangsters have been operating from there. The Tihar Jail, or any jail for that matter in the country, they always happen to be the hub of criminal activities. From jail, a lot of wrong things, a lot of crimes are being planned. It's a fact. All these things happen. So let's go into these facts in a more systematic manner and wait for the investigation to bring out more facts. And corrective measures, I'm clear about it, and Mr. Nigam is correct, that corrective measures have to be taken by the Delhi government. They should look into it.
Can I come?
Well, let me just to also bring this to our viewers, and this is actually part of what Supreme Court said in 2018 when this topic first came up, this issue first came up during the hearings of the Chandra brothers case. And the Supreme Court actually asked these questions. Is there a parallel system running in jails? These people are enjoying TV. God knows what all they are enjoying. They are sitting on sofas. There is use of mobile phones that is taking place. There were a series of things that the court actually showed their shock at before then seeking more details. Do they have special rights in jails? What have you done about it? These are the questions asked in 2018, the results of which is what we are seeing take place now. Keep that in mind. So it's not to say that this was a sudden move. It still took a lot of pushing and probing and questioning and an investigation by ED and deliberation by the Supreme Court to even get to the point of these 32 officials being suspended and an FIR being booked. Yes, Mr. Nagam, you wanted to come in?
Only one clarification to Mr. Khan's assertion that if you look at the Delhi government's website, when you look at the Council of Ministers, any department which has not been allocated to any other minister comes under the domain of the Chief Minister, and prison department is not with anybody else. Really? And therefore it is deemed to be with the Chief Minister.
Okay. Let me just go back to a point that Kiran Bedi was making when she said that, you know, during her time, when the overall revamp of the jail, Tihar Jail, took place, it was converted pretty much like an ashram where there were even, you know, services of meditation and whatnot to reform the prisoners. I would say, Miran Borwankur, today that place has turned into a 5-star hotel, not only for the luxurious services from air conditioning to grand television sets to you know, mobile phones and video conferencing facilities, but even access to whatever they want, to 5-star level food, to the very fancy alcohol and everything else. Now, you pointed out very important aspects in your opening remarks. I come to you now to ask you, how do we then fix this rot? Will it only be via Supreme Court's intervention asking for a larger overhaul?
Mute.
Yes, I think you're on mute.
2 points I would like to reiterate. One, I think it's time we have a separate All India service. Second, whenever we have staff which is involved in corrupt practices, either we take immediate disciplinary action, dismiss them from the service under 311 of the Constitution, article of the Constitution, or criminal trial should finish within 1 year. What would be the use of this whole inquiry if the FIR lodged today will come up for trial after 17 years? I gave you an example where I gave an evidence today. So All India service and immediate trial of corruption cases, not only in case of prison, but in all government departments. And then fill up the vacancies. All prisons in India today have about 20 to 30% of vacancies. Let the staff not be overworked. Let them not get tempted and train them better. So if we take these steps, I feel besides strengthening internal and external vigilance, we would be able to, if not stop, at least minimize cases of corruption within the prison and in other government departments. So
I understand what you say, that the staff is not really from the police force. They're not even trained to that extent. That level of training, sensitization is required. Irrespective of the fact whether they're overworked or underworked, the corruption can seep in. And the response to corruption has to be tough action. Is there a difficulty in that tough action for the jail, for the person who's heading the jail?
Not at all. We can take tough action. In fact, I feel FIR may prolong this case. And after 6 months, you have to reinstate the staff and start paying them 3/4 of their basic salary. So I would say that let the chief of Tihar prison take action within the through the departmental proceedings. It should be immediate action. That would be the real red flag, and the staff and officers will be scared off instead of prolonged trial in the court, which goes on unending. So yes, chief of Tihar prison can take immediate departmental action.
Okay. The additional sessions judge in this specific case actually found instances of household amenities, including mattresses, mustard oil, foot mats, stools, separate office room, computers with internet, printer, eatables and mineral water. Just an example. There are multiple such instances that have been reported at least in the last couple of decades that I have been following on it, Ananya. In how many of these instances that came out and got reported, did we actually see tough action against the officials?
That is what I'm mentioning, Tanvi, that this is very important because this is a criminal case, a case against these officials that has been registered. Ma'am might say that immediate action is what is required, but I think an FIR is a good move because it's a criminal case and these guys will be tried in the court. And this is a case which is under the Prevention of the Corruption Act, which has like stringent sections also. In fact, in the last few cases, a very recent one I'd mentioned in March, the Delhi Home Minister Satyendra Jain had in fact ordered an inquiry when one mobile phone was recovered from Tihar inside the cell where terror convicts are lodged. In fact, nothing came out from that. We haven't heard any update as to what happened in that inquiry, who are the officials who were suspended, what happened to them. There was no criminal case. At least in this now, we know that these people are going to be tried under criminal charges and the court is going to monitor the case. An investigation agency, the crime branch, is going to look into the case. There will be evidence that will be collected against these officials. So that is why this becomes very important, because just merely suspending those officials and conducting a departmental inquiry is not enough. That is what I feel.
Yes, and you know, the example that you gave, that was a very, very big instance that happened, a very serious one, where a terror suspect had access to a mobile phone and an investigation was then ordered, which has not gone anywhere. These are the examples that show you that while on paper announcements are made, there is never an intent to actually fix the problem until the courts interfere, at least not from the political establishment side, which is also what Kiran Bedi was alluding to. Completely out of time, but yes, last word to Mr. Nigam before I wrap this up.
You know, what, as rightly pointed out, delay in trial is one of the important aspects, and that has to be addressed. Second, effective legal aid has to be given at the stage of remand hearing, which is not very effective, and therefore it increases in under trial prisoners. And thirdly, an important point was raised that disciplinary proceedings can go on simultaneously as the criminal proceedings. So these are two independent things, and the level of evidence and proof required in a disciplinary proceedings is far less and less stringent than criminal proceedings. Therefore, you will be able to terminate, if established, you will be able to terminate, and then you can do it in a very, specified period of time. Criminal trial is not within the control. However, inquiry can be done in a time-bound manner, and if established, they can be terminated. That
yes, I think the difference of opinion is not actually in terms of actually what process would prove more fruitful, but also when you bring in the reality of some of the processes, it doesn't prove fruitful. The example that Ananya was giving was that if there's an inquiry and action to be taken subsequently, it hasn't happened in Tihar Jail's instance, which is why perhaps this is a better way, even if it is longer, but with the court's intervention, at least at some point something comes out of it. I don't know. Something has to work. Somebody has to show the will to bring about this change before it becomes such an accepted part of our reality. I mean, how much worse can it get? Where criminals are sitting inside jail, they're already behind bars. What more can you do? But sitting behind bars, they're still plotting murders. They're plotting shootouts to be executed in courtrooms. How much more brazen can they get about it? It's, it's not just about access to amenities or destruction of evidence. You're actually carrying out dangerous criminal activities while being inside the jail. Then what's left? So I hope that even as the Supreme Court follows on this case and the action taken in the investigation in this case against these 32 officials linked to the collusion with the Chandra brothers, I hope they also look at the larger picture and figure out a way to clean up the entire rot. Thank you for joining us on this conversation.